right. Thanks for tuning into the Health Hacks podcast. I am your host, Dr. Jenny. If you've been listening to us, Tara, my coworker and colleague and really good friend, we go back and forth. And this week we wanted to talk to you about ChatGPT, Dr. Google, and how those things affect your healthcare. So I'm sure unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably at least heard of and most likely even used some of these artificial intelligence tools. ChatGPT, Grok, even Siri. Like these are all AI-based tools that you can ask questions and they comb the internet and they can process information faster than any human being could ever do. So how are these things going to affect healthcare? And the reason that I wanted to have this topic is because I posted a little meme on Facebook and it really hit me hard. It was about, it said, make sure you're eating right and exercising because your doctor is learning how to provide healthcare services on ChatGPT right now. And I thought, gosh, that's powerful. And another quick little story on why I'm doing this episode. I have a daughter and she's pregnant with her third child and her iron historically runs really low. She's in the 1% category of people who have hyperemia gravis. So she is throwing up every day of her pregnancy. It's not morning sickness like, I'm nauseous for the first trimester. I am throwing up every day. Every time she's been pregnant, she's actually lost weight. So she can't keep anything down. And so she's low on a lot of nutrients. And iron seems to be the one that really provides a huge problem for her. And she had her labs done the other day and sent me the printout of her lab information, and her ferritin, which is the most sensitive or the best indicator of how much iron you have, it was at a 4. I have honestly never seen one that low. In my office, I've seen someone, we've been reviewing their labs and they were down in the 6, 7, 8 range. And when they're that low, I send them straight to the emergency room because they need an iron infusion in a lot of cases. It's imminent. The iron that I would give them, either a pill or a liquid form or something like that, even though those are really good, it takes some time. Iron is based on hemoglobin stores and red blood cells, and those take 90 to 120 days to regenerate. So you need some time taking that for those iron stores to rebuild. And I knew with a 4, a pregnant woman with a ferritin level of 4, that's dangerous, like very dangerous. And she was having heart palpitations. She told me, she said, I laid down for a nap. I didn't think I was going to get up. And she has 2 other kids. She's chasing them around. She said, I'm blacking out. So I said, call your OB. So she calls her OB and no answer. They were supposed to call her back. It's getting towards the end of the day. I said, go to the emergency room. And her ferritin was a 4 and her hemoglobin was a 10. And she goes to the emergency room and they did nothing. They told her to go home and take a nap, basically. They didn't recommend iron. They said, we just don't do iron transfusions. Now, mind you, this is a girl who is pregnant and like so symptomatic that I can't believe my ears. If I would have been with her at the hospital, I probably would have lost it. And here's why they didn't do it. Because her hemoglobin wasn't low enough. So what they did is they plugged all this information into some kind of artificial intelligence or algorithm or something that said, well, if her ferritin is below an 8 and her hemoglobin is also below an 8, then we can talk about a transfusion. But if it's not, we're not going to do anything. And so instead of thinking like this is a girl who is, she's 32 weeks pregnant, the risk of something bad happening to her or her baby, why would we not just give her iron? If we think about that for 30 seconds, we know that's the right thing to do, but that requires human thought and not just plugging it into an algorithm. So then I started thinking, how many people are just plugging their conditions into ChatGPT? And while there are some really good applications of AI, it can scour the internet fast, it can help with research. It's only finding what's out there. So if you think about it, what is out there on the internet in terms of health information is somewhat jaded, to be honest. Think back a few years to the pandemic. Did alternative thoughts and information ever see the light of day? No, they got shut down. We're not allowed to have a diversity of thought in the medical space. There are certain accepted, quote unquote, standards of care that unfortunately are driven a lot by the producers of pharmaceuticals. They're the ones that do this research, and they're going to tell you that a cholesterol level over 200, for example, is dangerous and needs to be medicated. So that's the kind of information. You're going to find a lot of information, but it's going to have a bias to it based on the status quo of the medical establishment, if you will. Also keep in mind that according to the FDA, you are not allowed to cure, prevent, or treat anything without a medication. Like, even if we have research, say, for example, that tart cherry juice reduces uric acid levels as effectively as anti-purine medications for gout, which you can look that up if you want to, and you will find it. But you're not allowed to say that. I am not allowed to say that what fill in the blank supplement cures, treats, or helps with a condition, because that is a medication or a surgery or whatever they want you to associate it with, but it's not something natural. So, that information is not as readily available on the internet because people are getting shut down. And I have a lot of colleagues that during the pandemic got in trouble for trying to help people with more natural stuff, and they got all kinds of nasty letters from the FDA and other providers that the boards in their state have written them letters and things like that because they're talking about things that are contrary to what has been quote unquote accepted. They get labeled as disinformation and misinformation and all of that. The other danger that I see with asking Dr. Google or ChatGPT or a lot of these things about your health history is that it's a very narrow window of what information they're seeing. So one of the things that I feel like ChatGPT and all of these intelligence, quote unquote, applications cannot do is replace a thinking practitioner with years of experience treating and helping people with certain things. So, I've been doing this for 20 years or more, and Tara has been in the healthcare space for that long. We both have experience in the traditional. She still sometimes takes on shifts at the hospital and does things in the hospital because she's such a nice person, and they're really short in the hospital for what she does, and so she goes in and still helps out a lot there when she can. And I just got to the place where I couldn't. They were forcing me to do things that I wasn't able to figure out how to still work in the hospital and hold fast to my beliefs of not injecting myself with certain things that I didn't want to be injected with. So I ended up having to completely get out of that world. But, we've seen that we've been doing this for 20 years. So sometimes it's more, they call it practice, right? In healthcare, it's a practice because it's not always as simple as, well, look at this flow chart and this person has this and that, and do you do this and that? Sometimes you just talk to people and they'll tell you things and you think, well, when I put these pieces all together, then this is what we need to do. And I've seen this before, and I've had experience with this before. And, if I just followed the rules, I would recommend this, but you're telling me this too. So it's this tangled web of unpacking all that stuff. And you can't do that with a 7-minute appointment. Like, most healthcare appointments are 7 minutes. That's all they give the provider to help the patient, because in an insurance-driven model, it's all about being high volume, and they're not asking you what you're eating anyway. They just want to give you a medication. But so you need more than 7 minutes. You need to ask them what they're doing with their life and help them unpack things. And then you also need to consider some other things that just might not make it into a flowchart. So there's that. So I wanted to have this little brief conversation about how we can, I'm not saying we shouldn't use these tools, because we use them a lot when we're coming up with content for ideas. We'll say like, hey, what are some topics that people are asking a lot about? So we can come and do a blog post or a podcast or something that, what do people want to know? What are the most asked questions? So we can provide true value. We do stuff like that. We have an AI meal plan generator that is fantastic. It used to take us so much time and energy to help people with their meals, because we had to come up with these plans for a gluten-free diet or a FODMAPs diet or a low oxalates, or, depending on what somebody needed therapeutically, we had to have all these things made up. But now we have this tool. We can just say, put so-and-so's name on this, and, they need to be eating this many calories and this many grams of carbs and this many grams of protein. They like tomatoes. They're staying away from gluten and dairy, and they, want to eat 4 times a day. Make a meal plan. And it spits out a meal plan in a minute. And so that, if I can use my time on the things that ChatGPT cannot do well, and let her or him or whatever you want to call it, let that artificial intelligence do what it does really well, then I think that's a huge win. There are some companies now with lab testing where you're spitting out your lab. They're spitting out a report based on your labs, and a doctor doesn't even do anything with it. It's all AI driven. So you have your lab testing done, and all of these results go through ChatGPT or some kind of AI, and it spits out like a report on what your labs say about you. But that goes back to that conversation we had about who's doing the interpretation. Because what I see all the time is I take labs, and Tara and I do this all the time. We'll take a set of labs that someone has said, they'll bring us their labs and they'll say, my doctor said everything looks fine. We'll look over them with a different set of eyes and go, well, this is why you don't feel good. On paper, all these things are quote unquote in the reference range, but let me tell you why they're not all in the optimal range and what that means and why you feel like you do. And so we're connecting dots that are not being connected. So of course, if you stick them through just some kind of algorithm that's looking for the typical reference range, you're going to get everything looks fine. But when you really start analyzing them with a different lens, it's a different story. So anyway, that I just wanted to have that conversation. I don't know what you all think of these applications, these intelligence applications or whatnot. Leave us a comment, send us an email, reach out to us on Facebook, give us your thoughts on that, because I truly I'm interested in this and I want to know what you think about it. So thanks for taking the time to listen. If you want to get a hold of us, there'll be a link in this description how you can do that. If you want to talk to us and ask a question about, hey, maybe I want a human set of eyeballs on this instead of just artificial intelligence opinion. But anyway, thank you for listening, and we'll be back next time.